Today we're going to answer the question, what happened to Mayor Tim Hanna? Welcome to The Local Perspective, and I'm Jerry Deschane. And my guest is the longtime mayor of the city of Appleton, Mayor Tim Hanna. Tim, thanks for being on the show.
I'm here.
Yeah, but the rumor is you're not running for re-election. How can this be?
How can that be? Oh my gosh. 24 years.
Long time.
As mayor. And you know what? It's time. It's time. And several things went into making that decision. And quite frankly, it wasn't easy. I love my job.
I can't imagine.
I love my job. I love my city. That's not going to change. But this is the kind of job you don't get to sign up a year at a time. It's 4 years at a time.
Right. So you got to be thinking out there.
Right. And you know, part of me was, I'm not sure that I want to or just physically able to do this job another 4 years. Because there's a fair amount of stress that goes with that. You know, day in and day out, week in and week out. That was part of it. But I still have a passion for local government. And, you know, that this opportunity came along that we'll talk about in a few minutes, really started me on the path of thinking, you know what, I need to stay involved. And this might be a good opportunity for me to continue to be involved, but yet step away from the day-to-day job of being the mayor of a pretty significant city.
And our audience doesn't know yet where it is that you're going.
Yeah.
And that's very cool.
We'll get there.
And I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that.
Yeah.
But before we get there, let's kind of let them hang for a little while. When you ran for mayor 23 years ago, was it your intention to make that a career that long? Do you intend to be mayor for 24 years?
No, I did not have a grand plan. In fact, I've told people over the years, first of all, I'm not a very good politician. I've never campaigned in between elections. I've never raised money in between elections. Once the election's over, my belief is you're elected to do a job, and I rolled up my sleeves and I worked hard for 4 years. And as that time frame would come up, I'd have to think about, okay, do I want to keep doing this another 4 years? So it wasn't a grand scheme of, well, I'm going to stay till I'm this age or that age. Not at all. There were certain things that I wanted to accomplish, certain changes I want to see happen. And so you just, you know, you keep working on those things. And I think part of the things over the years, one of the things we've been criticized for is we didn't take enough time to really celebrate the good things that have happened, because we were always looking to the next.
Because you're always moving on.
You're always
to the
moving
next,
forward,
next
always
challenge.
looking towards the future. So
one of my favorite TV shows was West Wing, and the president is always saying, okay, what's next?
yeah,
What's next?
what's next? So no, there wasn't a grand scheme. I'm going to stay for so long. In fact, to remind people, the reason I ran is because I wanted things to change. There were some things that I didn't like. I had been on the city council. They were doing things in a way that I wasn't happy with, and I had some different ideas. That's why I ran. It wasn't a case of, oh, I think I want to be mayor someday and now's the time. It wasn't that at all.
Okay. Well, and I remember you talk about projects, wanting to see this through or that through. Mayor Jim Schmidt from Green Bay stepped down a year or two ago, and he made the comment to me that it surprised him how long some of these projects take. But then the other part is it's never ending. There's always another one. There's always another one. And there's a big project in Appleton that you're working on. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Hope it does. But there's always something, is there not?
Well, I said this when I made my announcement. And maybe we can talk about this for a minute. But being mayor is really, for me, it's not about the projects. It doesn't matter who the mayor is. There will always be projects. And some people said, well, why are you stepping down now? You've got these big projects coming. And my answer was, there better always be big projects happening. And really, I see my job as the mayor, especially coming now to the end of this career, is making sure the next person is set up to be successful. Making sure those projects are are in the pipeline, that we're ready to go, that we've done it the right way, that financially we're in a good shape. That's really what my job is.
Well,
The projects are you better never be done in a city that is of any significance.
Well, and I guess another way of looking at it, Mayor, is it that the mayor's job isn't so much to shepherd a project through as to create a community or facilitate the creation of a community where people want to do stuff?
You're getting to the critical point there.
Eventually, I'll figure this out.
Yes. To me, it's all about culture. It's and that was one of my goals when I started. Was I had a private goal of I want to change the culture to one that the next person doesn't want to change, and I feel like I've accomplished that to the point where I don't think the culture inside City Hall or inside the city as an organization has ever been better. It's really good. It's healthy. People are happy. They know why they come to work. They know what role they're playing in the bigger picture, and that starts to spill out into the community. There's a really good culture in the community. It's positive. It's forward-looking. A lot of people involved. There's a high degree of engagement. That's good, and that is what fosters an environment for people from the outside to look at. Gee, that looks like a pretty cool place. I might want to live there. I might want to do a project there. I might want to invest there. So that's really, to me, that's what being a leader or what being the mayor is really all about, is making sure you've got the right culture for those things to be, for people to be successful, both internally and in the community.
So for the mayors that are watching this show and they get that, they understand that, but how do you know you've done it? What's the moment, Tim, where you sat there and went, yep, we have the culture here that we want?
There's little things that happen. Comments from your employees, comments from the public. A lot of it's anecdotal. It's a feel, or when people start volunteering to you that, geez, I really love it here. Oh, there's a great culture here. I'm really proud to work for the city. I can't give you an example. It wasn't too many months ago, and I was down in our public works department, and I'm on my way back to my office, and up on a partition was just a sign, and the sign said, "If the plan doesn't work, change the plan, not the goal." And I looked at that, and I could step back, and I went, yes. To me, that was a sign that the culture works. The culture is there. It's when your employees remind you of what the city's mission is.
Okay.
Not that you have to remind them all the time. It's when they start parroting it back and telling you, well, remember what we're here for. We're here to meet the needs of the community and enhance the quality of life. That's our job. And when that happens, I'm going, yes. I love it.
So was it shortly after that, Tim, that you heard that echo back that you said, okay, what's next? Where does Tim Hanna go from here?
It's like that needs to be sustainable.
Yep.
You need to have a good plan in place, a really good foundation, solid staff who understands it. I've seen staff change over the years. Their whole approach to work has changed because of the work that we've done, the cultural work that we've done, in a very positive way. And they will tell you, I'm not the same person that you hired. Mm-hmm. I'm different today. I think differently. I love it when my traffic engineer told me, yeah, I go to meetings with other traffic engineers, and they look at me and they go, what happened to you? and he's happy, because it's a traffic engineer who doesn't just think about cars. He thinks about people, and he thinks about bicycles and pedestrians, and he gets it. And so that's just an example of how that culture is really set in. So I've been feeling very good that we're in a good place organizationally. We're in a good place as a community culturally. So it makes it a little easier to make that decision that, maybe it's time.
But maybe where you're going makes it even a little easier as well.
So it helped, yeah.
So should we lift that curtain?
Sure.
You are
the incoming executive director of the Local Government Institute. For those members of the audience who don't know, what is LGI? Where did it come from?
Local Government Institute of Wisconsin was formed in, I think, late 2007. It was an idea that was really born through the Kettle Commission, and if people don't know what that was, take a look at it. It was formerly called the Blue Ribbon Task Force on State-Local Partnerships.
Governor Thompson called that.
Tommy, yeah.
You were a member, correct?
I was a member of that, and then the subsequent Sheehy Task Force, same thing, basically. And it was one of the 165 recommendations that came out of Kettle was maybe the local government organizations need to work more collaboratively or closely together. One of the foundations of the Kettle Commission was really making recommendations on how do you get local government working better together, more collaboratively. So LGI was formed when the Counties Association, the League of Municipalities, the former Alliance of Cities, and the Towns Association all got together. And I think part of it was, we're over in the Capitol, we're lobbying for things, and 98% of the time we're lobbying for the same thing.
Sure, we agree.
Shouldn't we spend more time together and figuring out if we can maybe leverage what we're doing? And the talks initially were the county, the league, and the alliance, and we said that there's somebody missing. We have to invite the Towns Association, and we did, and they accepted. And LGI was formed. Now it's formed as not a lobbying organization. That's done by the individual organizations, the lobbying. It's really done as a research organization to research ways that we can foster greater collaboration amongst all units of local government across the state. So over the years, we've commissioned a number of reports, and those reports are still valid. We've done some research projects, and I think we're ready to take this organization maybe to the next level and really push a little harder on that collaboration piece.
LGI was set up by the four organizations. Gary Becker, the consulting engineer, formerly with Veer Becker. Gary did a wonderful job. He's retiring now. He's kind of moving on to his next chapter. Where do you want, I know how excited you are about this role. And in some ways, this is sort of the ice cream for you, what you've always loved doing. Where do you see it going? Where do you see it focusing as we move forward?
Well, I hate to say this, but to me it's pretty simple. If we want more collaboration, then we have to find ways to build more trust. And the way you build more trust is through relationships. And so, every other month, representatives of those organizations sit at a board meeting. But it's been 12 years. We've never had the boards of those organizations in the same room.
No, I'm not sure it's ever happened.
I don't think it's ever happened. I think, so trust is built on relationships. And relationships are built when you get to know people.
Right.
We need to create more of those opportunities for our members to get to know each other. Not only within the regions where they exist, but even across the state. For whatever reason, there's a fair amount of mistrust between local units of government. Cities don't trust counties, and towns don't trust cities and villages, and there's reasons for that. But sometimes that can melt away once you have a personal relationship, and you just find those areas that you have in common. And not surprisingly, there's way more we have in common as local units of government than not.
My guest today is the mayor of Manitowoc. I knew I was going to do that, believe it or not. Mayor of Appleton.
I've aged.
Appleton Mayor. Yeah, Mayor Nichols won't be happy to hear that. Tim Hanna is the mayor of the city of Appleton and is not running for re-election because he's moving on to a statewide challenge to become the executive director of the Local Government Institute, a body set up to encourage collaboration among units of local government. So continuing on, Tim, there's a lot of collaborating going on now, is there not?
Absolutely.
What's missing? What are we not doing? What could we do more of? What's the gap?
Well, let me back up a second because I don't know that everybody knows this. Appleton's kind of had to collaborate, and
Because geographically, you're just in the wrong place.
well, or the right place. I don't know. I tell people I'm lucky enough to be the mayor of the largest city in Outagamie County, and the largest city in Calumet County, and a piece of my city in Winnebago County.
3 counties.
3 counties, 5 school districts.
5.
And so, depending upon where you live in the corporate boundaries of the city of Appleton, you'll get one of 10 different tax bills.
Does the woman that has to program the computer to do that?
Do we pay her enough?
You don't pay her enough. Wow.
So, but step back a minute and think about the reality. And the reality is 3 counties, 6 school districts, 5 school districts, and all of these other municipalities that make up the Fox cities. Appleton, I've said this from the beginning, Appleton, we don't have our own economy.
Right.
We share a local economy with our neighbors. And that can be repeated all across this state, that there are these regional economies which have multiple counties and multiple municipalities. When you get down to the citizen level, it doesn't matter to them. And I know 50% of the people who live in Appleton don't work in Appleton, and there's a whole bunch of people who commute in every day who don't live in Appleton, but we share the local economy. So as local government, who do we work for? We work for the people. We ought to find ways to be as efficient as possible with the money that they entrust us to provide the services that they need. And that means working with our neighbors. Now, there's a lot of obstacles to that. But back to your question. Your question is, isn't there a lot going on? Absolutely, there's a lot going on. I think there's more going on than people realize. Mm-hmm. We happen to keep an inventory of all the things that we do collaboratively. Other governments, nonprofits, private sector, and that document's over 30 pages long.
This is just the city of Appleton's collaborations
with other entities, all focused on meeting the goal of our mission, which is to meet the needs of the community and enhance the quality of life.
And when you talk about the community, Tim, are you talking about the city of Appleton?
Mm-mm. No. Community and city are 2 different things. A city can be defined by lines on a map. A community is defined by relationships and people. I can't show you a map of our community. Community is really about people. And those people live and work across jurisdictional boundaries every single day.
Why is it so hard? And I'll bring up, let's jump right to the really hard one.
Yep.
Fire departments.
Yeah.
You know, we have mayors, Mayor Soglin, former Mayor of Madison. A lot of fire chiefs have talked about how in many cases we have more equipment that we need in a geographic area. Mm-hmm. Our fire stations are not optimally placed. Mm-hmm. But boy, there are places, them's fighting words. You know, you don't dare talk about mergers. Why is it so hard?
It's interesting. It's really the subject of the first report that LGI did was talking about what those barriers are. Lack of trust, no clear fiscal benefit. There's 6 identified areas that have to exist for a strong collaboration. Mm-hmm. Fire departments they're funny things. It could be the level of professionalism. It's really hard to merge a paid-on-call department with a full-time department.
Sure.
Or a volunteer department with a paid-on-call department. Different levels of service, different expectations, different willingness to pay for what a combined department would look like. You know, people don't want to pay until their house is on fire. Then it's like, I don't care what it says on the side of the truck, right?
Bring me the best.
So fire, a lot of times the precursors are mutual aid, automatic aid. Mm-hmm. We've got some of that going on. We've had mutual aid with all of our neighbors for many, many years. And now the last 5 or 6 years, we've had automatic aid with two departments, Grand Chute and Neenah Menasha Fire Department, and it helps coverage. And it's interesting, since we've had automatic aid, which means closest unit responds regardless of department, we've tracked it, and with both departments, it's funny, it's almost 50-50.
So it's really not, the imbalance in service provision is not that big.
Right. So it can be done, but again, I think one of the critical pieces is trust, relationships. I'll tell you one that didn't work. We tried merging with Grand Chute, Appleton and Grand Chute Police Department. And all the pieces were there, and it should have worked. But there were a couple egos that got in the way, and the thing that undid it was, what are we going to name the department, of all things? But in spite of that, we have a better working relationship with that police department than we've ever had. We didn't quite get to the full merger. What we did was we have 6 new agreements with Grand Chute in a number of different areas where we work much closer together.
Tim, to what extent does the way we pay for local government services help this or hurt this?
It's one of the biggest obstacles, I think.
The property tax and what we used to call shared revenue?
Shared revenue, levy limits, just the revenue stream for local government, period. Much has been documented, especially recently, that Wisconsin is an outlier in the way that it pays for local government. The only source of revenue that I have really any control over is property tax, and that is greatly restricted by the state. Restricted to the fact that I can only raise my property levy by how much I grow my tax base due to net new construction.
I was about to say, not just inflation or market value, actual 2x4s.
Correct. So the problem is, for local government, you start with the money, and in order to generate more money to pay for increased cost of services, I have to grow my tax base based on net new construction, which means when there is somebody wanting to build a new business, apartment building or whatever, I have to convince them to build on this side of the street, not that side of the street.
Regardless of what the broader community
Correct.
or common sense would say.
Correct. It goes against the whole idea of working together for the good of the community, and it boils it down to, we need to compete for the good of the municipality.
So is there a simple solution to this, Tim, or is competition inevitable?
No, I think there is a solution. Kettle Commission had a solution, and it's really based on looking at the state with a little bit different lens, looking at those regional economies and putting a system in place where those regional economies benefit from growth within the region, and that growth is shared somehow. So that's number one. And number two is, we've got to look at the mix of revenue that is used to support local government, period. We cannot continue to be solely dependent on property tax. People hate the property tax. It's just not practical. And I've been questioning just myself, is it still the appropriate tax to pay for a lot of these municipal services? At one point in time, property was a sign of wealth, and so you taxed it to pay for services. And then we went through this long period of helping everybody achieve the American dream and home ownership. And is home ownership really a good measure of wealth anymore?
Not if you're in a fixed income. It's not.
Exactly, right? And it's the reason why so many cities are going away from, for instance, assessments for special assessments, right? Because those people on fixed incomes who've lived in their house for a long time can't afford $4,000 or $5,000 special assessment when you fix their road anymore. So looking at other ways to pay for those infrastructure improvements. That's just one example.
What do you hope, as the leader of LGI, how do you hope to use that organization to address this issue?
So follow this logic here. We need to have the organizations themselves be more collaborative. So we need to create opportunities for the leaders of the organizations to establish better relationships, which then can lead to more trust and maybe more collaboration. I want to find the common ground between all the organizations, that foundation that we can build on together. And I know it's there. I'm not sure what it is, and I want to do a lot of listening the first several months in that new role to find that good, solid foundation that we can build on as local government across the board. We need to find opportunities for our members to get to know each other and to build trust and build those relationships, which will lead to collaboration. So if we can harness that and have all these people in local government speaking with one voice and educating our citizens consistently about the need for change, the need for revenue change. And by the way, that does not mean higher taxes. It means changing the way that we pay for the things that we do today. And in fact, I would argue that if we can foster more collaboration, we can be more efficient with local government. I know it. I've done it. I've seen it. We can do it. We can do it across the state. We can use tax dollars more efficiently. We just have to have a source of revenue that more reflects what's happening in the economy.
Right.
And less emphasis on competition with our neighbors. I want Wisconsin to compete with our neighboring states. And quite frankly, when you really step back, we should be collaborating with our neighboring states too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no real end to it, is there?
There is no real end to it for ultimate success. But if we can do that, I think, and then leverage our partners in the private sector, we can start to put pressure on the people in Madison to actually do something. One of the things LGI did was they took and pulled all of those state studies over the last 50 years, starting in the 50s, that looked at the relationship between the state and local government. Mm-hmm. And they put them in one place. And I printed them out, I got a stack of them.
Bedtime reading?
I started going through, and it's amazing the things that were said in the 50s and 60s still apply today. The problems are the same. All of these studies, you bring together the smartest people in the state, they spend some time together, months together, they come up with recommendations, and that's where it stops. There's no political will to implement the recommendations. We have to create that political will because the problems are still there, the issues are still there, but I think we create that political will by using the people. And we use the people by having all of local government work together to educate them on the need for change.
Fascinating. My guest is the mayor of Appleton, Tim Hanna, who is not running for re-election after 24 years, kind of astounding everyone. We assumed you'd be there forever, but is moving into an even more exciting role as the executive director of the Local Government Institute. You've been listening to The Local Perspective. I want to thank the folks at Wisconsin Community Media who do this for us. I'm going to give Tim about 30 seconds for the closing comment here, so prepare yourself.
Okay.
But I do want to thank the people of Wisconsin Community Media who distribute this, and especially the crew at Fact TV. We're their hosts today. Great studio. But Tim, you had to do a culture change thing at Appleton. Mm-hmm. And one day you woke up and realized, wow, what's that day going to look like for LGI when you wake up and realize, wow, and you got 15 seconds.
Oh, my gosh. When I see those relationships, those positive relationships between local government people at all levels, from counties and towns and villages and cities, all speaking with one voice, knowing the thing that they have in common, and to be able to leverage that for good government in the future for Wisconsin.
We're going to talk more. This has been The Local Perspective. Thanks for joining us.